My son was doing so well at the wedding. I know that sounds like a weird thing to lead with, but if you knew how hard we worked to get there, you'd understand why I noticed. 7 years old and autistic, and he was managing a full wedding reception. Crowds, noise, strangers hugging him. He had his noise-canceling headphones in his pocket, and he hadn't needed them once. I was so proud of him I could have cried. My cousin got married on a Saturday in June at this venue with floor-to-ceiling windows and too many people, and I almost didn't bring him. But he asked if he could come. He wanted to see Aunt Jessica get married, and he promised he'd tell me if it got too loud, and I thought, maybe this is good. Maybe this is progress. I cleared it with Jessica 2 weeks before. I asked if there were going to be any surprises that might be sensory issues, and she said no. She said the DJ knew to keep it calm during dinner. She said she wanted him there. So we went. And he did great. He sat through the ceremony without fidgeting. He ate dinner and didn't complain about the texture of the chicken. He even danced with me for one song before he said his feet hurt and went to sit down. I kept checking on him every 10 minutes, and every time he gave me a thumbs up. I thought we were going to make it through the whole night. Then the DJ switched the music. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe Jessica told him to amp it up after dinner. Maybe he just decided it was time. But 1 second, it was normal reception music, and the next, it was this pounding bass and strobe lights flashing across the whole room. I saw my son's face change before I even heard him. His hands went up over his ears, and he started rocking in his chair, and I was already moving toward him. But the music was so loud I couldn't hear if he was crying. I got to him in maybe 5 seconds, and he was making this sound in his throat like he couldn't breathe. And I pulled him up and carried him out into the hallway. The hallway was quieter, but he couldn't stop rocking. I sat down on the floor with him and pulled him into my lap and covered his ears with my hands and just let him ride it out. That's what his therapist taught me. Don't try to talk him down. Don't ask him questions. Just be there and block out as much input as you can until his nervous system resets. It took maybe 3 minutes. When he finally stopped shaking, I asked if he wanted to go home, and he nodded. I texted my husband to bring the car around, and we left through the side door. My son fell asleep in the car before we even got out of the parking lot. I thought that was the end of it. We had a bad moment. We handled it. We went home. That's how autism works sometimes, and I was just grateful we got through most of the night before it happened. I didn't think about it again until Sunday morning. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. My friend Rachel. She doesn't usually text me before 9 on weekends, so I opened it right away. It said, "OMG, is this your son?" And then a link. I clicked it. The video loaded, and I saw the wedding venue hallway, and I saw my son rocking back and forth with his hands over his ears, and I saw myself in the background for maybe 2 seconds before the video cut. The caption at the top said, "Future school shooter. I stared at my phone. I stared at my phone." I watched the video again. It was 30 seconds long. Just my son during the worst sensory meltdown he'd had in 6 months. No context, no explanation. Just him crying and rocking, and the caption calling him a future school shooter with a laughing emoji. The view count said 500,000. I scrolled down. The comments were worse than the caption. Someone said he looked possessed. Someone said, "This is why you don't bring problem kids to weddings." Someone said the parents probably beat him at home and that's why he's so messed up. I kept scrolling and my hands started shaking. There were 12,000 comments. I clicked on the account name. It was my cousin, Jessica, the bride. She posted it at midnight the night of her wedding. 6 hours after we left, she filmed my son having a medical episode in her venue hallway and posted it with that caption and went to bed. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone and I couldn't move. My husband came downstairs and asked what was wrong, and I handed him my phone. He watched the video and his face went white. He said, "We need to call her right now." I said, "No." I said I need to think first, because if I call her right now, I'm going to say something I can't take back. But I knew what I was going to do. I opened the video and clicked report. I selected child exploitation. I selected ableist hate speech. I wrote in the comment box that this is a 7-year-old autistic child filmed without parental consent during a medical episode. I submitted the report. Then I reported it to every other platform I could find where she'd cross-posted it. My husband said maybe we should just ask her to take it down. He said maybe she didn't realize how bad it looked. He said, "This is going to start a family war." I looked at him and I said she called our 7-year-old a future school shooter. I said she filmed him during the worst moment of his night and put it online for 500,000 people to laugh at. I said I don't care what kind of war it starts. The platforms didn't respond right away. I kept checking my phone every 20 minutes, waiting for some kind of confirmation that they'd reviewed my report, and I got nothing. The video was still up. The view count kept climbing. By Sunday afternoon, it was at 750,000. Jessica posted an Instagram story that night. I didn't see it at first because I'd unfollowed her after I filed the reports, but Rachel sent me a screenshot. It said, "Apparently some people can't take a joke. It's my wedding video. If you're offended by a kid having a meltdown, maybe ask yourself why you brought him to an adult event." Just saying. I read it 3 times. My husband read it over my shoulder and said, "We need to stop engaging." He said this is exactly what she wants. He said if we keep pushing this, we're going to look like the vindictive ones and nobody's going to remember what she did. I turned around and looked at him. I said she didn't call it a meltdown in the video. She called him a future school shooter. I said that's not a joke, and it's not a wedding video. It's 30 seconds of our son in medical distress that she posted for engagement. He said, "I know, but starting a war with her isn't going to make it better." I said I already started it when I filed the reports. He didn't say anything after that. I waited. Monday? Nothing happened. Tuesday? Nothing happened. I started to think maybe the platforms weren't going to do anything at all. Maybe viral content gets a pass even when it exploits children. Maybe my reports went into some automated queue that nobody actually monitors. Wednesday, I sent follow-up emails to every platform with screenshots and timestamps and links to medical documentation about autism meltdowns. Thursday, I heard nothing. Friday morning, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My son was at school and my husband was at work, and I opened the door in my pajamas with coffee in my hand. There was a woman standing on my porch with a county badge clipped to her belt. She said, "Good morning, ma'am. I'm with Child Protective Services. We received a report and I need to speak with you about your son." My stomach dropped. I said, "What kind of report?" She said, "Can I come inside?" I let her in because I didn't know what else to do. My brain was screaming that this didn't make sense. We'd never had CPS involvement. Nobody had ever questioned how we parented. Our son's teachers loved him. His therapist sent progress notes every month saying he was thriving. I sat down on the couch and she sat across from me with a tablet in her lap. She said, "I'm going to read you the allegation and then we'll talk. Is that okay?" I nodded. She looked down at the screen and said, "The report states that your child is, quote, too well behaved at home, and this raises concerns about fear-based control or coercion. The reporting party expressed concern that the child may be subjected to intimidation tactics that suppress normal childhood behavior." I stared at her. I said too well behaved. She said that's what the report says. I said, "My son is autistic. He has an IEP. He's not too well behaved. He has sensory processing issues and routine preferences, and sometimes he has meltdowns in public, and I'm trying to figure out who would say he's too well behaved." She wrote something on her tablet. She said, "Do you know who might have filed this report?" I said, "Yes, my cousin." She posted a video of him having a meltdown at her wedding, and I reported it for child exploitation, and now she's retaliating. The worker's face didn't change, but she wrote more notes. She said, "I can't confirm who filed the report, but I do need to complete an investigation. That means I need to tour your home and speak with your son and review any relevant medical or school records. Are you willing to cooperate?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Anything you need." I walked her through the house. I showed her his bedroom with the weighted blanket and the sensory swing and the visual schedule on the wall. I showed her the kitchen where we keep a chart of safe foods because he has texture aversions. I showed her the folder on the counter with his autism diagnosis and his IEP and 6 months of therapy notes. She took pictures of everything. She asked if she could see his school records, and I logged into the parent portal right there and showed her. Attendance perfect. Behavior notes said he struggles with loud environments but responds well to redirection. Teacher comments said he's kind to other students and participates in class. She wrote it all down. She said, "I'll need to visit his school and speak with his teacher independently. I'll also need to schedule a time to speak with your son in a neutral setting. This investigation will take approximately 3 days." I said, "Okay." She said, "If everything checks out, you'll receive a clearance letter and the case will be closed." I said, "What if it doesn't check out?" She said, "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." She stood up and handed me a business card with her name and a case number written on the back. She said, "I'll be in touch." I closed the door behind her and stood in my hallway, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Jessica filed a CPS report because I reported her video. She called CPS on us because she got caught exploiting our son and needed to hit back. And now I had 3 days to prove I wasn't abusing my child because he's too well behaved. The CPS worker came back on Monday. She'd spent 3 days interviewing my son's teacher and reviewing his medical records and observing him at school during lunch and recess. She sat down in my living room with the same tablet and the same neutral expression. She said, "I've completed my investigation." I held my breath. She said, "Your son's behavior is entirely consistent with autism spectrum disorder. His teacher reports he's well-adjusted and responsive to structure. His therapist's notes indicate significant progress over the past year. There's no evidence of fear-based control or coercion in your home." I felt something unlock in my chest. She said, "I'm closing this case as unfounded. You'll receive a clearance letter in the mail within 5 business days." I said, "Thank you." She didn't get up right away. She said, "Can I ask you something off the record?" I nodded. She said, "Do you know who filed this report?" Because the language was very specific. I said, "I think it was my cousin. She posted a video of my son online, and I reported it for child exploitation. 2 days later, you showed up." She tilted her head. She said, "Do you have evidence of that?" I pulled out my phone. I showed her the screenshots I'd saved of the original video with the caption. I showed her the Instagram story where Jessica doubled down. I showed her the confirmation emails from the platform showing I'd filed reports on Wednesday, and CPS showed up Friday morning. The worker looked at the screenshots for a long time. She said, "Ma'am, when someone files a CPS report that's this specific as retaliation, we investigate them too." I looked at her. I said, "What does that mean?" She said it means if someone weaponizes the child protection system to harass a family, they've made themselves a person of interest. We don't take kindly to malicious reporting. It clogs the system and it wastes resources that should be protecting actual at-risk children. I said, "So what happens now?" She said, "I need to visit your cousin's home. There are protocols for this. If she has children in her care, I need to verify they're safe. If she doesn't, I still need to document the complaint and put her on record for filing a knowingly false report." I didn't know what to say. She stood up and put her tablet in her bag. She said, "I can't tell you what we find during that visit, but I can tell you this. People who file retaliatory CPS reports usually have something they're trying to deflect from." She handed me a new business card. She said, "If she contacts you again, or if this escalates in any way, you call me directly." I said, "Okay." She left, and I sat on my couch staring at the business card. Jessica was about to get a CPS visit of her own. I didn't file that report. I didn't ask for it. But the system she tried to weaponize against me was turning around, and I couldn't decide if I felt relieved or sick. My husband came home that night, and I told him everything. He said, "Maybe this is good. Maybe she'll finally understand she went too far." I said, "Or maybe she'll escalate again." He said, "There's nothing left for her to do. The video's still up." CPS cleared us. What else can she possibly try? I said, "I don't know, but I didn't think she'd call CPS in the first place." He didn't have an answer for that. We waited. Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line said, "Content violation notice." I opened it. It was from the platform. It said, "Our investigation is complete. The video in question violates our child exploitation policy and our hate speech guidelines. The account associated with this content has been permanently banned. The video has been removed from all platforms." I read it twice to make sure I understood. Jessica's account was gone. The video was gone. I checked Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and every single one of her accounts showed the same message. "This account has been removed for violating community guidelines." I sat down at the kitchen table. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. I answered. A woman's voice said, "Is this the mother of the child featured in the viral video from last weekend?" I said, "Who is this?" She said, "I'm calling from the school district's HR department. We employ your cousin Jessica Manning as a 3rd grade teacher. The video came to our attention this morning and we're conducting an internal review. I need to confirm you did not give consent for that video to be posted." My heart started pounding. I said I did not give consent. I didn't even know she was filming. The woman said, "Thank you. That's all I needed to confirm." She hung up. I sat there holding my phone. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone. Jessica was a teacher. She posted a video mocking a disabled child, and the school district just found out. I didn't report her to her job. I didn't even think about her job. But someone saw the video before it got taken down, and someone made a call. The woman from HR said they were conducting an internal review. I didn't know what that meant or how long it would take. I just knew Jessica was under review and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. Wednesday came and went. I kept checking my email, but there was nothing. My husband said they're probably doing their due diligence, and I said, I know, but the waiting was making me feel sick. Not because I wanted her to lose her job exactly, more because I didn't know what was coming next, and I hate not knowing. Thursday morning, I got another email. It wasn't addressed to me directly. It was a forwarded message from someone in the district office, and the subject line said, Employment Termination Notice. Someone had CC'd me by mistake, or maybe on purpose. It said, effective immediately, Jessica Manning's employment with the district has been terminated for violation of professional conduct standards, specifically posting content that mocks a minor child's disability and violates our zero-tolerance policy on discrimination and child exploitation. I read it 3 times. She lost her job, not suspended, not under review, terminated. I forwarded the email to my husband, and he called me 2 minutes later. He said, Are you okay? I said, Are you okay? He said, This is what happens when you post something like that online. She did this to herself. I said, I know, but it feels like a lot. He said she called CPS on us. She tried to get our son taken away because we reported her video. This isn't too much. This is proportional. I didn't argue with him, but I still felt strange about it. Not guilty exactly, just aware that her entire life was falling apart because of one 30-second video. Friday, the CPS worker called me. She said, I wanted to let you know I completed my visit to your cousin's residence. I can't share specific findings, but I can tell you she's been flagged in our system for filing a malicious report. If she contacts you again or attempts any further retaliation, you call me immediately. I said, Did you find anything? She paused. She said there were some concerns. Nothing that rises to the level of removal, but she'll be monitored for the next 6 months. That's all I can say. I said, Okay. She said, Take care of yourself, ma'am. You did the right thing protecting your son. She hung up. I sat there trying to imagine what they found at Jessica's house that required monitoring. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to think about it. But the CPS worker's tone told me enough. Jessica tried to use the system to hurt me, and it backfired completely. Saturday, my aunt called, Jessica's mother. I almost didn't answer, but I thought maybe she was calling to yell at me and I wanted to get it over with. She said, I saw the video. I said, okay. She said, I can't defend what she did. I'd been trying to understand it for 3 days, and I can't. That's your baby, and she put him online like that. I didn't say anything. She said she's not welcome at Thanksgiving this year. I told her she needs to figure out what's wrong with her before she comes back to family events. I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked, and I realized she was crying. I said, thank you for telling me. She said, I know she lost her job. I know CPS is involved. I don't know what else is going to happen, but I want you to know I don't blame you for any of it. We hung up, and I sat on my porch for a long time. Jessica's family cut her off. Not because I asked them to, because they saw the video and couldn't justify it. Sunday night, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I had blocked 2 days earlier. I unblocked it long enough to read the message. It said I was just joking. You're ruining my life. I lost my job. CPS came to my house. My mom won't talk to me. I said, I'm sorry. What else do you want from me? I stared at the text. I typed back. You called my 7-year-old a future school shooter online. That wasn't a joke. She sent 3 more messages, but I didn't read them. I blocked the number again and filed for a restraining order Monday morning. The judge granted it. Jessica isn't allowed within 500 feet of me or my son or our home. If she violates it, she goes to jail. My lawyer said the order is good for 3 years and we can renew it if needed. I said, I don't think we'll need to. Jessica lost everything in 2 weeks. Her social media accounts, her job, her family's support, CPS monitoring, a restraining order, all because she filmed my son during a meltdown and thought it would be funny content for her wedding followers. I didn't ruin her life. She posted that video herself. She captioned it herself. She doubled down when I asked the platforms to remove it. She called CPS as retaliation when consequences started. Every single thing that happened to her came from decisions she made. My son is doing fine now. He doesn't know about the video. He doesn't know about CPS or the restraining order. He just knows we don't see Cousin Jessica anymore, and that's okay with him because she wasn't very nice at her wedding. He started a new social skills group last month, and his therapist says he's progressing beautifully. I still think about that video sometimes. I think about how many people saw it before it got taken down. I think about Jessica watching her life fall apart and still not understanding that she did it to herself. But mostly I think about documentation. When someone films your child's medical episode for entertainment, you don't fight back with rage. You fight back with reports and records and restraining orders. You protect your kid with paperwork and you let consequences handle the rest. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. This one was hard to tell, but I think it matters. Stories like this show up here every day at Daily Karma Reads because sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone's own actions catch up to them. If this story meant something to you, I'd love it if you subscribed. New story drops every single day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.